Hey there, welcome. Well, first, wanted to thank y'all for joining us today. I'm gonna go ahead and do a quick introduction. That way we can pass it off to Tracy so she can start us off with the presentation since we're trying to keep it short and sweet for y'all. So my name is Mari. I know y'all got the newsletter from me last week, but I am the graduate assistant here in the Student Activities Office for student organizations, working with advisors. And so we do have two new coordinators that have started with us earlier this semester. So I'm gonna go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Abby, you can start.
Okay, hi, I'm Abby. Also, I go by Apolline, that is my given name, but Abby sometimes easier. I'm the new advisor support and risk management, and I work one-on-one with Mari every day.
And Lisa.
Hi, my name's Lisa, and I'm one of the other new coordinators. I oversee registration for organizations and officer support, but I just wanted to stop in and see what this was about.
So I will go ahead and let Tracy take over, and if you want them to introduce themselves or whatever works for you, Tracy, but otherwise we'll go ahead and start. So thank you.
Perfect. I will go ahead and get started. This is going to be recorded and online, so I won't have y'all introduce yourselves, just so that isn't on the internet forever. But welcome to Advisor Expectations. Thank you all so much for joining. My name is Tracy Fryer, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Spirit and Traditions here in Student Activities. I'm so glad that y'all could make it. A little bit about who I am. So I've worked in student affairs for 20 years, and I like to say, don't let my purple hair fool you. I'm much older than I might look. The students keep me young, but I serve as the advisor for Talons. And if you don't know who the Talons are, they are the Spirit and Traditions organization here at UNT. And so they are responsible for upholding UNT's traditions. So a couple of things that they do is they build the homecoming bonfire every year. They fire Boomer the Cannon. They drive the Mean Green Machine, which is an antique car. And they light McConnell Tower, which sits on top of the admin building green, when we have home sports wins and sometimes special occasions. So that's not all they do, but there's a little highlight list. And they're a pretty complex organization. They're comprised of 8 executive board members, and they average about 80 members, sometimes more, sometimes less. It just depends. And so in full disclosure, they are advising them as a part of my job description. And part of that is because they do a lot of high risk activities. And so there's a lot of risk management and oversight. And so my level of involvement might look different than your level of involvement. And that's okay. This is kind of to get an idea of maybe things that you want to implement or ideas on your involvement, and just what that could look like. So hopefully everyone here is an advisor, but if you're not an advisor, again, this is going to go on the internet too. So I welcome people to be an advisor. We are always looking for good advisors because we always have students starting new student organizations, and one of the hardest things I think sometimes is finding an advisor for them. So if you have colleagues or people that you want to encourage, like this might be a way to encourage them to come on over and be a student organization advisor. I think some of the reasons to do it are you get to interact with students outside the traditional classroom setting, which is really fun, making a difference in their lives, and just seeing how much they grow and develop is actually a really cool experience. You give a chance to share your knowledge and expertise with them, and just, sometimes make that personal connection and just see where the road takes them after graduation. It's also a way to give back to the community and assist with retention and exposure. And like I said, they keep me young. And so learning a lot of vernacular and things is always interesting. That's how I stay cool with my 16-year-old niece. So I think being an org advisor is an invaluable experience. So with that, we're going to talk about responsibilities on a couple of different levels. Again, your level is going to depend on the organization that you're an advisor for, but these are some ideas and things to consider. So starting off with responsibility to the individual organization members. So sometimes this can look like helping students find a balance between academics and their co-curricular activities. I'm sure you have seen students, or you will see students, or maybe you were that student at one time that was over involved. You were in 3 or 4 organizations on the exec board, you work. So these describe a lot of our highly involved students. And so sometimes they need to learn how to take a step back and really prioritize, because you can't do everything, but they're here to learn and earn a degree. So maybe helping them narrow down their focus to what's really going to be helpful for them after graduation. Encouraging students to accept responsibility for specific roles in the organization. We're always learning, or I'm sorry, we're always growing and cultivating that next group of student leaders. So your word and voice goes a long way into encouraging those next group of leaders to step up. I think of a Jennifer who was a Talon, and with the encouragement of not only myself, but her peers, she stepped into a committee head role and planned our big retreat that's overnight. And we had a lot of fun, and she did an amazing job. And then when I went to her and said, Jennifer, you're going to apply for the executive board, right? And she was like, oh no, that's so scary. Like, I don't know. And so just talking with her and reassuring her that you're not going to be alone. I'm going to be there to help you. The other exec members are going to be there to help you. And I really think that you can do a good job. So again, with that encouragement, she ran for the exec board, and she did an amazing job, but I don't think she would have done it without the encouragement of myself and her peers. And so that also, like, participating in organization events. So maybe somebody isn't a leader yet, or maybe there's an opportunity for someone to help take an active role in planning an event or something within the organization. Talent has committee heads that are responsible for different things. So one example is Unity. And so they plan events for the organization members to hang out and just, kind of get together and do fun little events. And so that is an opportunity for those folks to then hopefully take and step up to an executive role position. But again, maybe you don't have committee heads, and that's okay, but maybe the organization is planning on putting an event. So how can you maybe incorporate the next group of leaders to also get involved in helping plan that event? You're also going to, again, provide encouragement and guidance through a wide range of situations. You never know, like, what might pop up. They might want to just totally redo their constitution, and you might have some really valuable knowledge, or they want to plan a really big event that they've never planned before. You're going to be able to really give them guidance and support. Also, mediating interpersonal conflicts that might arise between members. This is all going to depend on your role and how comfortable members are with you, how familiar they are with you. Like I said, I'm pretty involved with my organization that I advise. And so I go to member meetings. We have exec meetings that I go to weekly. I do one-on-ones with my officers. And so they are familiar, and they see my face all the time. And so I would say a lot of them are pretty comfortable with me. And so one came in last week, and they had a conflict, and we sat both people down and kind of just worked through that. And they felt comfortable with me being there and kind of helping them mediate and talk about it, because it is difficult to confront somebody about an issue, but both parties felt good about me being there and helping them through that. So you kind of never know, like, what will pop up from day to day. Responsibility to the organization. This one is one that I take very seriously, and it is really important. We have organizations that kind of pop up, and then they're here for a little while, and then they drop off. And so as an advisor, you can really help that organization not be that, right? So that they're here, they have a long-standing history of being an organization, and then they just improve from year to year to year. And so some ways you can do that is by being familiar with the organization's history and its constitution. This was helpful during COVID because we now have members that have never seen some of our events in person, and now they're planning them. And so they're like, I'm planning this, but I've never seen it. And so my knowledge and history has been valuable into helping them along and planning that event. We also sit down from every semester. At the beginning of the semester, we have an officer retreat where we do goals and strategic planning for the semester and the year. And so part of that at the beginning is the officers talking about their goals for their positions and what they want to accomplish throughout the semester. And then the second half is we bring in committee heads, and then the officers work with the committee heads to talk about their goals of those committee heads and in their positions. And so this helps provide some stability and from year to year to year, and again, growing those leaders and making sure that the organization can continue. Transition, org records, you don't want those things to get lost in transition. Once people graduate, they are not thinking about whatever organization they were a part of. So it's difficult if somebody had something on a personal drive or something, getting that document back is going to be very difficult. So how can you create a record keeping system so that things don't get lost? We have all Google emails, so they all have a Google Drive. So the officers have to save all their documents in the Google Drive. It's shared with me. It's tied to my email and my phone number. So if somebody changes the password or they leave, I can still recover that email in those documents. But we don't want all that stuff to get lost in transition. Assisting students with information regarding events and processes, things that have worked in the past, in the future, providing feedback on those programs. We had a fundraiser that really didn't work that well. And so a couple of years ago, and so then when the idea came back up again, I was able to be like, hey, this is what happened the last time we did it. So we need to work through some of these issues. Being aware of plans and activities that the organization is doing or holding and informing them of policies and procedures. This is just good to help them along, right? If they want to do an event, they have to submit their event application 10 days in or 15 days in advance. And so if they don't do that, their event's not going to happen, or they want to do something that's a little riskier. The towns wanted to do a pie in the face. We can do that, but we need to make sure we're not damaging the university property and that people aren't getting hurt and things like that. So helping them through that process, especially if they've never planned an event before, they might not be thinking about risk management and those things. And so you can help give them feedback to help them hold a successful program. So when they do hold programs, giving them some feedback, right? Like what worked well, what didn't work well, what changes do we need to make for the next year? Being available to regularly meet with your organization officers and some members. This is going to depend on your organization and the type of organization it is. Like I said, I do meet regularly with my officers and I'm very involved, but your organization might not need that. So maybe you just meet at the beginning, middle, and end of the semester, or maybe just the beginning and the end. It's important to discuss with the organization what that's going to look like for y'all. It is also, everything is a spectrum, right? So I'm pretty involved with my organization, but I do not run the organization. It is a student organization. And so my role as an advisor is to help guide, mentor, challenge, support them, but it is not to do the work. So if the organization is talking about holding an event and the event application hasn't been done and it's 5 days out, that event is not going to happen. It's not my job to put in the event application for them. So you don't want to be running the organization. You are not the president. You can be involved and highly involved and helping them along. But on the other end of the spectrum, I would advise you not to just be the person that signs off on things, right? You don't know anyone in the organization. You don't know what they're doing. You have just no idea what's going on. You are just the person that signs off on when they want a classroom, or they need someone to sign off on something. So there's a good middle ground is what I'm saying, being overly involved and not really involved at all. And so you just have to decide what that looks like with your organization. How about the responsibility of the organization to you? So really should look at establishing a clear understanding between yourself and the organization, right? Like what we were just talking about, like what are the expectations that they have of you as an advisor? Like how involved do they want you to be? And getting to a common ground and establishing those lines of communication is important. How do they communicate their needs to you? Do they email you? Can they call you? Can they text you? Can we use something called Discord for all of our communication? They can send me a DM on Discord. You may not be that available, so they need to send you an email. So just having them know how they can contact you. If they need help, can they just pop on by your office? Obviously important to establish those lines of communication and the best communication. I would suggest that the president should meet with you semi-regularly just to give you an idea of what their organization is doing and kind of what's going on, and have them communicate any major structure changes. If they're going to overhaul their constitution, that's a pretty big deal because their constitution is really important. They need to follow that when situations occur or they're making changes. So you may have some valuable insight into their constitution changes. Another area that I feel pretty strongly about that all advisors should be involved in is the maintenance of financial accounts. The Talons have a chart string, so they can't spend their money without my approval. And so most organizations are not run like that. Most of them have a Wells Fargo account, and the president, the treasurer, and the advisor should all be on the banking account. And so helping them establish a budget. Does the organization does the treasurer want to come in and review expenditures from you, with you from time to time? You want to make sure that, and this has happened, unfortunately, that someone on the bank account has spent money, personally used org expenses, or withdrew all of the money out of the account, right? That's awful, and we don't want that to happen. So as an advisor, how can you help ensure that their money is being spent how it should be, how it was intended, and responsibly? And so again, coming up with that with the group and how they want to do that with you is going to be important. And then your responsibility to UNT. So being familiar with university policies and procedures. I'm going to drop some things in the chat too for you all. But also serving as an advocate for students, right? So if your organization is having a really big problem or an issue, or you run into a roadblock, we are your allies, Student Activities. So maybe you need to contact Abby or Lisa and get some help with something. And then reporting university violations to Student Activities. So if you get allegations of hazing, right, that's a big deal. We need to report that. If your treasurer does run off with all the money that the organization collected, that's a big deal. So contacting us so then we can review the situation and escalate it if necessary. Resources. So like I said in the chat, I'm gonna try to drop some stuff down in here. But there is this advisor workshop, worksheet. I think I sent it. So this could help facilitate a conversation between you and your officers. How involved, like what does your involvement truly look like from their perspective? Like what do they want it to look like? This can help facilitate that conversation. And then there is a student organization policy. So on the policy website, if you go to policy.unt.edu, this is the student organization policy number, and you can look that up and you can read it and get more information about what your responsibility is from the university perspective. There is an advisor handbook, which I'm also going to drop in. And if this is updated, it'll be on our website. But this advisor handbook, I think, is pretty thorough and has a lot of information that I think would be really helpful to peruse at your leisure. And then the student org coordinators, Abby and Lisa, they are also going to be resources for you as well. And then here's our general contact information. We are located in the Union, Suite 345. It's a little difficult to find, but we are here. There's our website and our email. So maybe you don't remember who to email, Lisa, Abby, forget their names or something, then you can just send us an email. They'll get that and then respond. And then of course, there's our phone number. And that is it for me. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Okay, hi, thank you for this information. So I'm the advisor for a new organization, and we have a Southwest Regional Conference in Florida. And so the officer board, and I think maybe a few members are wanting to go, and they went to the travel grant meeting and they've submitted an application, and I did the letter of recommendation for them. But as far as an advisor, like, what's the expectation here? Like, because, you know, I went through the training, the orientation, and like, do I say, hey guys, like, you're representing UNT, like, you know, don't do things that you're not supposed to do.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
There is a student travel policy.
Mhm.
Have you read through that?
Maybe, maybe not, I don't remember.
Okay, yeah, I would look at the student organization policy, and I would look at the student travel policy. And you know, just generally speaking, yes, when we travel, we want, if you're wearing UNT, I almost said memorabilia, but apparel, there we go, apparel, right? You're at this conference, you're obviously representing your student organization in the university, then yes, you want to make sure you're acting in accordance, that you're not making the organization look bad. But I would look through those policies, and then if you have like additional questions, again, reach out to Lisa and Abby. But yeah, they do want to represent the university well. And I'm sure they want to represent their organization well, you know, also.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. And again, if there are questions, Abby and Lisa and Mari are a great resource for you all. So thank you all for coming and joining us. And if you think of something later, just send us an email. We're happy to help.
Thanks, y'all. If y'all need to head out, you can do so. I will have the recording will be uploaded probably later this month, I think, on the website. And whenever I send out the newsletter in March, I will include it on there. If you need to go back to any references or any of the other resources that Tracy provided for us earlier, I'll have that included on there. But again, as she said, if you have any questions, you can reach out to any of us here. But I hope this was helpful for y'all, just to kind of provide more clarity and information on expectations as an advisor. But again, thanks for joining us, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Yes.